Hi, I'm Lillian. Welcome back to my channel Ink and Pages. This video is going to be my first ever unhaul. Basically, I have finally moved out of my family house into a flat by myself. It's much closer to the centre of London and much closer to where I work. I've been living at home again since I graduated university a couple of years ago, and I really wanted to move out last year, but obviously that got postponed, but it's finally happened. And that is where all of my shelves you would normally see behind me have already gone to. And it turns out that moving is the perfect opportunity to cull your bookshelves a little bit. So all of the books I have to show you in this video are ones that failed the I want to reread this test, or they failed the I want to carry this up 4 flights of stairs with me when I move test. And I think I have like over 40 books I'm getting rid of, so that's quite a sizable chunk of my shelves. And so I think we'll start with the ones that don't technically belong to me. So even though I'm including them in this unhaul, like they're not going anywhere, I'm not getting rid of them. So first of all, we have Dart by Alice Oswald. This is a very tiny poetry book about the River Dart, which I never read and sat on my TBR for ages. And then I thought, is the urge to read this book strong enough for me to take it with me to a brand new place and carry it up all those stairs? And the answer was no. So that is going back into the family collection of books. Next we have The Dry by Jane Harper, and also the sequel, Force of Nature. These are detective books set in Australia, and I read the first one and it was okay. Never read the second one. Again, it's one that sat on my TBR for ages, and I just thought, I don't care enough to bring it with me. Next we have a book I borrowed from my friend Daisy literal years ago, and it is Ink and Bone by Rachel Kane. She told me this was like a YA, I think it was a YA fantasy book. I want to say in a world where the Library of Alexandria never burned down / never was destroyed, and it's something about books being illegal. Yeah, owning private books is a crime, it says. And Daisy, I'm very, very sorry I owned this for so long and never read it, but at least now I can give it back to you at last. And the final book in this little subsection of the unhaul is this copy of The Lord of the Rings, which belongs to my dad. This is all 3 of the books. It's got like Bible thin paper and this gorgeous cover. And yeah, literally, it's got all 3 of the books in. It's so cool. I mean, look at that. That's the entrance to the Mines of Moria, I think. And it's got like maps in it. It's got a full, I think, 2 maps in it. There you go, look at that. And it's incredibly beautiful, but I'm honestly too scared to bring it with me in case I ruin it. So that is going back to him. Then we've got just like a couple of random ones. Flags of the World and this Guide to Prague. I did go on holiday to Prague with Daisy and it was great. We didn't really use this book, but I mean, I've been there, so I don't need the guide anymore. This book is like a kid's astronomy book I was really obsessed with when I was little. But again, it's sat on my shelves for like 15 years. I'm not gonna bring it with me. It's time to finally say goodbye to The New Astronomer. Next, we have Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. I really enjoyed this book when I read it, but that was like 6 years ago, and I'm just not gonna reread it, so I've made the tough decision to not bring it with me when I move out. However, I would still really recommend it. From what I remember, I think it would hold up. It's set in the 30s in a circus in America, and it's kind of like a mystery, kind of bit like a romance. I remember the mystery more than the romance. And there is like an actual elephant in it as well. Next, we have The Help by Catherine Stockett. Again, this is sat on my shelves for so long. I think I probably read it like 7 or 8 years ago. I don't want to reread it. I did enjoy this when I first read it, and I think it was quite well received generally at the time, but since then, people have started to question, like, why is basically the story of the black maids in the 1960s being told mostly by a white protagonist? It's just a bit questionable. And I mean, I didn't have any plans to reread it anyway, and that was kind of the nail in the coffin for it for me, so I'm getting rid of that. Next, we have Amy Poehler's autobiography, Yes Please. I really like Amy Poehler, I really love Parks and Rec, but even when I read this the first time, I think it was quite underwhelming for me. I would still recommend it if you love Amy Poehler as well and you want to learn more about her life. But I think the problem is with like comedians and funny actors, they always try and pitch the book like it's going to be really hilarious, and it was kind of funny, but not as funny as Parks and Rec. So again, that's another one that's finally leaving my shelves. Next is Secrets for the Mad by Dodie. This is just another book that I enjoyed the first time round, but I don't want to reread and therefore don't want to bring it with me. I remember really liking like the design on the inside and the coloured pages, and it has sort of like handwritten bits and song lyrics in. But also I'm not really sure how this ended up on my shelves, because I didn't buy this for me and I don't think anyone else bought it for me. I feel like it might have belonged to my brother and then he got rid of it and gave it to me. But anyway, it's time for it to go. Tamar by Mal Peet is a book I think I got from a friend in secondary school, and I remember it being a like World War II drama, and I just kept it for so long because it was a present. But honestly, like, I've had this so long, the person who gave it to me I'm no longer in touch with, and I never really liked it that much to begin with. So I don't know how it survived so many years on my shelves and how it survived so many previous unhauls. Next are a couple that I read last year and found very disappointing. So we've got the Penelopiad by Margaret Atwood and The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. I read these both last year, I think for the Owls Magical Readathon, and I just found them both very disappointing. I gave them both 2 stars. The Penelopiad was pitched to me as a retelling of the Odyssey from the perspective of Penelope, who is Odysseus's faithful wife, who, you know, waits 20 years for him to come back and remains faithful the whole time, whatever. And it was just very underwhelming. I just don't like Margaret Atwood books. I'm sorry, I've tried so many of them. I have another one of hers here as well. I have The Blind Assassin as well. I don't know why I keep trying them. I've just never really gelled with them. I'm sorry, Margaret, I just can't gel with your books. But yeah, I'm really interested in like Greek mythology and legends and stuff, and so I was really interested in this book, and it just was very like bleh. And kind of the same thing with The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. This is a murder mystery book with kind of a sci-fi twist, where basically the protagonist wakes up each day in the body of a different person who was present at the murder, so like a different suspect / witness, and then he has to relive that day from lots of different people's perspectives to try and solve the murder. And that sounds really interesting, but whereas I was mostly interested in the murder mystery element, the book kind of tried to emphasize the science fiction element, which was interesting to me but really not the main appeal. And so overall, the book just really didn't work for me, and I didn't like the ending. And since then, it has only survived on my shelves for so long because I kind of like the cover. And then The Blind Assassin, I would tell you what this was about, except that I literally don't remember any of it. I think it was about 2 sisters, and one of them becomes a famous author, and she writes a book called The Blind Assassin. And I think this had like time jumps between before and after her death or something like that. I just didn't like it, I'm sorry. Another example of this is I have the 2nd and 3rd books of the His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman. I'm keeping the first one, Northern Lights, because I really like that one. The Subtle Knife starts well and quickly devolves near the end, and I just remember absolutely despising the Amber Spyglass pretty much from the very first page. I feel like this series is super famous and you probably know what it is. But just know that towards the end, it basically turns into like biblical fan fiction, which I was never a fan of. And both times I read this series, I really hated like the last book and a half. So I'm getting rid of the last book and a half, but keeping the first one. And my sister, who loves the entirety of this series, is probably very angry with me for keeping only the first book and getting rid of the 2nd and 3rd one. But I'm not sorry. I would reread Northern Lights. I would never reread these 2. Another disappointing read I'm getting rid of is The Clockmaker's Daughter by Kate Morton. I read this last summer, and it kind of just cemented the hypothesis I had that each of her books is just getting worse. Her first 2 books, The Forgotten Garden and The House at Riverton, are amazing. I still really love them and would love to reread them. But since then, all her books, it's like literally they've just gone downhill. It was just really disappointing. It had a weird like a ghost character in. It was the first one of her books to have paranormal elements, and it just failed on every level. And it's so pretty, but it was really disappointing, so I'm getting rid of that. Next, we have Hamilton the Revolution by Lin-Manuel Miranda and Jeremy McCarter. This has like lots of behind the scenes stuff for when they were creating Hamilton, and like It was very interesting, but I'm no longer as obsessed with Hamilton as I was like 4 years ago. And this book is very chunky, and I mean, it's got cool, like weird, rough edges, but I don't want to reread it. I don't want to bring it with me. I don't know why I keep explaining that. I mean, the whole point is I don't want to bring any of these books with me. So after that one, we've got quite a few Tintin books. What do we have? We've got The Blue Lotus, The Calculus Affair, Tintin in Tibet, The Shooting Star, and The Land of Sharks. And honestly, all of these books are either bad and or racist. So I'm keeping a couple of the Tintin ones. I think I'm keeping the Castafiore Emerald, King Otto's Scepter, and Destination Moon, because those ones are actually good. But these ones they're just not. I mean, no, not the ones. Next, we have Beautiful Ruins by Jess Walter. This is set in the 60s, and I think it's kind of about Hollywood. And I wasn't a huge fan of it the first time I read it, and I would never reread it. Next, we have In Real Life by Jen Wang and Cory Doctorow. This is like a cute little graphic novel about a girl who starts playing this online game, which I think is meant to be similar to World of Warcraft and games like that. And it had its cute moments, and it had like good lessons you could learn from the story, but I think it was just a bit too young. I think it was aimed at quite a younger demographic than me. So while I would recommend it for that demographic, I'm not going to pick it up again. Next are two books from my Mythology and Folklore shelf. These are the only two books from that shelf that I'm getting rid of. And they are Mother Earth, Father Sky, which is all about Native American myths, and then this Penguin Classics Hindu myths. And basically, these books are just kind of ugly, and I haven't felt the urge to read them yet. And when I do feel the urge to read about Hindu myths, I want it to be in a much nicer book than this. I like the ones with pictures and cool graphics. And this one's just really, really old and not the kind of book I'm looking for that. And Mother Earth, Father Sky, I feel a bit mean about this because in my complete TBR video I made towards the beginning of this year, I talked about this as one of the ones I thought I was most likely to read in 2021. But since then, I have come to the realization that that's just not true. And I'm also pretty sure this book was like not written by a native or indigenous author. I'm pretty sure it was written by like a white guy. So that's not the best voice to be learning about this topic in. So I would really, really like to read about this subject, just not this book. After those, we have the entirety of the Millennium trilogy by Stieg Larsson, which is, you know, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, like those books. These are like crime thrillers. They're translated from, I want to say Swedish, but it could be Norwegian. And I did enjoy these at the time, but again, they're just not books I want to reread, and I found so many books since I read these that I like so much more. I'm just never going to come back to them, really. Next is a book which, to be honest, I probably should have included with the ones right at the beginning because this isn't technically mine, it belongs to the family, but that is The Time Traveller's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger, which has this amazing sticker of Mr. Incredible upside down on the front cover. I'm pretty sure this is one of the books that my mum bought one year for one of our like family holidays. I think she'd go into Waterstones and just get like the 3 for 2 deals. And then any of those books that came with us and survived the family holiday ended up being a bit battered and having incredible stickers stuck on them. And while I'm getting rid of this book, I'm actually keeping her other book I own, which the name of is escaping me. No, I remember it. It's Her Fearful Symmetry. I am keeping that one because that one's more interesting to me. It's still like a book I think about semi-regularly. It's still occupying a place in my brain, while this one is no longer doing that. Next we have this big non-fiction book called Information is Beautiful, which just has like literally just information and like fun facts and cool graphics and things like that. And it's a fun coffee table book, but I do not own a coffee table currently. And I think this book, it's maybe like 5-ish years old. So, I mean, all of the fun facts and information are likely to be out of date now. So while I love the idea, it's no longer very relevant. So I'm getting rid of it. Next is The Complete Book of the Flower Fairies by Cicely Mary Barker. I love the Flower Fairies, I always have. I mostly love the pictures more than the actual poems. So the only reason I'm getting rid of this is because I already own a copy of The Complete Flower Fairies, which I've had since I was like 7, I think. And this is just, yeah, a duplicate copy that's ended up on my shelves. Bloodlust and Bonnets by Emily McGovern is a book I reread quite recently, I think maybe 2 months ago. And like I say in the wrap up where I talk about this, Upon that reread, I found it just really, really disappointing. This is set in the Regency era, but it also has like vampires and a telepathic eagle and a magic castle and lots of sort of weird shenanigans. But it's also, I found it tonally very one note and annoying, didn't like any of the characters. It was just basically kind of a flop for me the second time I read it. And so I knew then that I would be getting rid of this pretty soon. Next, I will very, very briefly mention The Cuckoo's Calling and whatever this one is, Career of Evil by Robert Galbraith, aka the transphobic arsehole that is J.K. Rowling. Even when, before I knew she was a transphobic arsehole, I wasn't a huge fan of these books. I like crime/murder mystery books sometimes, but these just always felt really, really long and kind of boring. I remember they took sort of 200 pages for anything to happen, and I was kind of only keeping them because they were by J.K. Rowling. And so now that is no longer a reason to keep them. I'm getting rid of them. And in fact, they haven't been on my shelves for quite a long time. I put them under my bed when it all first came out with her, and then they lived there for like several years, and I only found them when I was packing to move out. Next is The Rosie Project by Graham Simpson. This is a contemporary romance about an autistic main character who kind of tries to find a girlfriend using like an objective scientific method to find someone who's most compatible to him. And then, you know, he starts to fall for someone who doesn't fit any of his criteria at all. And it was quite fun. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's set in Australia, and I haven't read many books that are set in Australia. But since I've read it, I've had more reviews that say that this isn't the best representation for autistic characters. It's not own voices or anything like that. And I mean, there are just so many other romances out there doing it better than this, that I'm going to try and give them a go one day. Next is Cogheart by Peter Bunzel. This is one of the only books here that I haven't read. Again, this sat on my TBR for ages until I decided I wanted to get rid of it. I took it off my shelves, I put it under my bed, and then I forgot about it for like 2 years. So in spirit, this has been unhauled for much longer than the rest of these books. But this is a middle grade book about a girl called Lily who has adventures somehow involving clockwork. Then I have The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. Now, I would actually really recommend this book. I really liked it. Unfortunately, it's just one of those thrillers that reading it a second time isn't going to be that enjoyable, I don't think. This is about a woman called Rachel who catches like the same train to commute into London every day, and she always like looks out and sees the same houses, and she's spotted this couple living in one of the houses that she goes past, and she sort of has this like idea of them in her head, and they're like the perfect couple. And then I think one day when she's going past, she sees the husband in this couple kissing someone who is not the wife, and she sort of starts getting obsessed, and it's kind of a psychological thriller, and it's also kind of a murder mystery. I think it's a murder mystery as well. And it's sort of crazy, and I really, really liked a lot of the twists, and it has the whole unreliable narrator trope, kind of. And yeah, I really liked it. I wish if I read it, I would get the same level of enjoyment out of it as the first time, but I just don't think that's going to be the case. So I'm going to pass this on to someone who will hopefully like it as much as me. Next we have The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey. This is a weird book because it's kind of historical fiction. I think it's set in the 1920s in Alaska, but it's also maybe paranormal, maybe magical realism. It's kind of never explained, so if you think you like books that are a bit weird and never give you a definitive answer at the end, you might enjoy this. It's about this couple who don't have any kids and they really, really want them, and one day they wake up and they find this baby, and it's kind of about like, does she belong to someone? Is she like magic? I'm someone who does not tend to like ambiguous or open-ended stories. So I think I liked this as much as I could, but it was never going to be a favourite. Then we have Lock and Key by Sarah Dessen. This is much like every other Sarah Dessen book I've read, in that there is a teenage main character and she's having a bit of a hard time, and then there's some kind of romance. And I think I've read maybe like 4 or 5 of her books, and this one was always the one I liked the least and was least likely to pick up again, so I'm getting rid of this one. Next is Room by Emma Donoghue. This is a really famous book about a little boy called Jack who lives with his mum in this place called Room, and it's the only place he's ever known. He's never been outside, and then one day his mum comes to him with this plan for them to escape. And this was a really, really good book that I would highly recommend, but I found it so stressful to read that I'm never gonna pick it up again. Okay, and then we have the last two books I'm getting rid of, which are both ones I've read this year. And normally I wouldn't get rid of a book so soon after reading it, but moving out has forced me to challenge that preconceived notion. So firstly, I have Earthlings by Siaka Murata, which is the worst book I've read in ages, gave it 1 star. I talk about it more in a wrap up. But still, it was gonna stay on my shelves until the end of the year, and then I could be like, okay, my reading for 2021 is done, let's get rid of the ones I didn't like. But instead, this has been in my life for probably less than 6 months because I got it right towards the end of 2020, I think. So it's had a very, very short life on my shelves, and I'm not sorry to see it go. And then finally, we have Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, which I read for the Tis the Down Readathon in March and unfortunately found really disappointing. I love the idea of this book. It's about this little coffee shop in, I think, Tokyo, where if you go there and you sit in a specific seat, you can travel back in time. And there's all the different rules about it, but the main one is you only have so long as it takes your coffee to get cold. And that's such a cool idea. I loved how whimsical and interesting this sounded, but I just had a lot of problems with mostly the writing of the book really didn't gel with me. And also the first person in the book who does this, who goes back in time in the cafe, I found really, really annoying. So like the first 25% of the book were mainly focused on a character I really didn't like, so I never really got into it as much as I wanted to. And again, this probably would have stayed on my shelves for a lot longer if I wasn't moving. I don't tend to get rid of 2 stars like automatically, so this could have survived many, many more months with me, but unfortunately it's time to get rid of it. So those are all the books I am unhauling. There are 46 of them in total, which has made moving a lot easier, but has also left my shelves looking kind of bare in places. So I'm gonna have to rearrange them slightly to fill up the gaps that these 40 whatever books have left. But also could give me an excuse to buy more books. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!